Welcome to the Employee Rights and Responsibilities Information session. The information here may differ from your employee manual. If that's the case, your employee manual will always take precedence over the information provided in this video. A big misunderstanding about cannabis is that it will be treated like smoking. This is not the case. Cannabis has a much longer impairment duration than smoking. As a best practice, it is recommended for non-safety sensitive positions that you do not consume cannabis 8 hours before your shift. And for safety sensitive positions, you do not consume cannabis 24 hours before your shift. Your employer has the absolute right to prohibit cannabis use during any company event. Please ensure you check prior to an event what is appropriate to bring with you. And if you do drink or use cannabis at a company event, please ensure you have an alternative way home and you do not drive impaired. The company has updated a number of policies, including the prescription policy. If you're taking medical cannabis or you have a prescription that causes impairment, you must disclose this to your supervisor to have a discussion if alternative duties need to be provided. Also, the drugs and alcohol policy has been updated to include cannabis. Cannabis, alcohol, and illicit drugs are not allowed to be consumed before or during a shift. It is also expected that you are able and show up for your shift fit for duty, meaning that you have not consumed cannabis at a minimum of 8 hours prior to your shift. If you are impaired due to prescription drugs or any kind of other illness, the company has a duty to accommodate you up to the point of undue hardship. The government has been clear that safety-sensitive positions are held to a much higher standard. Therefore, it is expected that if you do consume cannabis, it is recommended that you do not do so 24 hours before your shift. If cannabis does enter the workplace, the question should be asked if it's medical. If the answer is no, chances are disciplinary process will follow. If the answer is yes, your company has a duty to accommodate your prescription up to the point of undue hardship. If there's a dependency on cannabis, your company also has a duty to accommodate you up to the point of undue hardship. However, you do have to follow the recommendations and plans set out for you. And if you do not participate or do not attend the meetings that have been scheduled for you, you can be terminated. Again, a safe, sensitive position is held to a higher standard, and therefore it's expected that your employer and yourself will have more detailed discussion on what we can do about your prescription and about your impairment while you are taking these prescriptions. Each province has its own duty to accommodate. You can go to their direct website and download duty to accommodate and see additional rights and responsibilities both for the employee and the employer. The only way we're going to solve cannabis in the workplace is if we have open and honest discussions with each other about the expectations and working with each other so that everyone around us, including you, can be safe. Now, if you are unfamiliar with cannabis, here's a little cannabis 101. Each province and city will have its own bylaws and legislation. It is your responsibility to ensure that whichever city you are in, you know what cannabis bylaws to follow. The reason why cannabis has both a medical and psychoactive effect of us is that we have receptors in our body that specifically interact with the cannabinoids from a cannabis plant. There are two main types of cannabis plants and a whole bunch of different hybrids. Depending on which type of cannabis you will take, you will have different effects. So if you've ever taken cannabis and you became very sleepy, congratulations, now you know you took indica. THC is the psychoactive element that causes the majority of impairment with cannabis. CBD is used more in the medical community and does not have the psychoactive element of impairment. The street drugs or the illegal drugs that are currently on the market have been specifically bred for high THC. However, this doesn't have to be the case. Medical cannabis can breed THC to low levels but cannot breed it out completely. And anecdotally, it's been shown that if somebody is consuming medical cannabis with a THC level of less than 1%, they do not feel impaired. Now, this is anecdotal, and yet we're waiting for additional research to be able to have definite answers. Cannabis can help with specific ailments, and some companies will cover medical cannabis. However, most likely it will be done through the health spending account, and there will be caps. There are various methods of consumption of cannabis. The most popular is smoking through the medical community, and most likely with recreational cannabis, also smoking and vaping will be the most popular method of delivery. Smoking provides the quickest onset and the shortest duration. Taking cannabis, ingesting cannabis, or taking oils has a much longer onset and a much longer impairment. This is again why it is recommended that you do not consume cannabis 8 hours before your shift. Because cannabis is so highly attuned to our own biochemistry, we can all take the same amount from the same source and have different effects. If you're taking cannabis for the first time, please ensure that you are doing it in a place that you are safe with people that you know that will take care of you in case that you do not have a good experience on cannabis. Alternatively, medical professionals recommend that you refrain from using cannabis for as long as possible. Police will be out in force after October 17th, and it has been shown that when legalization of cannabis has become law, that there is an increase in vehicle accidents due to impairment with the mixture of alcohol and cannabis. If you're consuming alcohol and cannabis, or just one or the other, please ensure you are not driving for a minimum of 24 hours. There are long-term and short-term effects of taking cannabis. Both include psychosis, which is the seeing and hearing on things that are not there. If you have mental illnesses, cannabis can make those mental illnesses worse. Cannabis can also be addictive, especially if they're introduced to youth at an early age. It can double that addiction rate. However, most people who have alcohol addiction were also introduced to alcohol at a younger age. Ultimately, it is your responsibility to report for work fit for duty. If you feel that you are impaired, it is also your responsibility to disclose that impairment to your supervisor. We are genuinely concerned about cannabis in the workplace, and we want everyone to feel safe to be able to discuss this and to be able to know that their coworkers are not coming into work impaired. Thank you. You may now take the online quiz and you will receive your certificate of completion.